Taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Acura MDX. This is the 2025 model that's based off of the Google Android operating system. So the last generation did have a different operating system and a slightly different look. Unfortunately, I just started reviewing Acura vehicles, so I haven't been able to get into a 2024 model yet. But if I'm able to get into one of the last generation screens for a walkthrough, you'll find that down in the description of this video. But let's dive in and I'll walk you through the current generation version. Along the top left-hand side, you've got 3 individual icons, and these are all locked into place. So your home, back, and then your Google Assistant button, which is going to let you do things like change songs, radio stations, you can navigate using your voice, control your climate, and a bunch of other things. So these ones are stuck into place, and then you've got 3 icons along the bottom left-hand side, and these ones are customizable. So if you do a push and hold on any of them, it's going to then give you the flexibility of adding any of these other options in. So let's say you didn't want to have maps there. Maybe you wanted to have FM radio instead. You've got the flexibility to do it. If you want ambient light there, you can adjust these out, and there are 3 individual lines, or icons I should say, that you'd be able to use. Once you're done editing these icons, you can hit back in order to save those ones into place. And then you can also adjust the screen layout here. Push and hold until it becomes loose. Once it is, push and hold again, and then drag around in order to customize the layout, and you can drag these icons throughout the pages as well. So if you wanted to have AM over on this page here, next to FM radio, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. Once you've modified these ones and you're happy with the location of all the icons, you're just gonna hit back to lock these into place. Along the right side, you've got this little quick launch tray. So you've got your current user profile, the current time, and then a series of other options too. But one nice thing is that on any of these options, you can push it in order to slide the information along the side here instead. So if you wanted to have your radio there, whatever the case may be, you've got the flexibility to do it. So let's dive in and I'll take you line by line, showing you everything you need to know. First thing is that you are Google Maps based inside of this ride. And one of the nice things here, so if you haven't used Google Maps before, there we go, fresh install, which is useful. But Google Maps pinch to zoom capability is there, drag around with your finger. You can easily recenter it onto yourself if you'd like to. You can search for addresses this way, so if you wanted to look for either an address, if you wanted to search by GPS coordinates, look for point of interest icons, you can do that. You can hit here to show traffic, if you prefer the satellite terrain mode instead. There are route options, so if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, and ferries, you could. You could also download offline maps. And the benefit of downloading these maps is that if the vehicle doesn't have an active data connection, you'd still be able to use maps. It wouldn't work as fast, but you could at least download the data there if you know you're traveling somewhere where you're not going to have a connection level to the vehicle's built-in modem. So that's extremely useful. Back again, you can hit this in order to mute out all notifications. You can just get alerts. So if you're coming to an upcoming turn, it can let you know. And then you can hit here in order to get all notifications. You can adjust your heading type this way, so north, up, perspective views, etc. for whatever one you'd like. Easily searching for addresses. So again, I mentioned you can search by GPS coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search for point of interest icons. There we go, let's choose one that's a little bit further away. So let's go for this one here. And you can see we've got our main route in order to get there. If your phone was connected, you'd be able to call, you can start, or see if there are other routes that are available. So we've got 3 different ways that we can get to the end destination. Choose whichever one you'd like. Route options are available, so if you wanted to avoid certain things, once you're happy with your route choice, you're just gonna hit start, and that's gonna bring you to your end destination. You could cancel out your route. You could hit this icon again to see what different route options were available. You could also search for additional options. So let's say if you wanted to stop at a gas station before you stop to get a coffee, you can see which options are there along the way. So let's add in Shell station here. So we've got that as our next destination, or as our first, I should say. We're gonna add that in as a stop now. And there we go. Gonna confirm, and you can see there, we've got our full route. And then just recenter. Now, one nice thing is that you do have factory navigation here, and you can glance over onto the screen, but inside of the ride, you also have your head-up display, and you can see your turn-by-turn directions right inside of the head-up display. On top of that, inside of the cluster screen, if you use the right trackpad, you can go into a full mapping cluster view instead. Honestly, I love that. You've got options. So you can look at your map and cluster, the head-up display, or the infotainment system in order to see the route that you need to take. I love it. You can then hit the X icon in order to remove the next stop that we added in, or you can completely exit navigation. Looking at search, you can see the addresses that we've previously searched for. So Google Maps is great. One other great thing is that you can hit this little icon and then you can sign into your Google account. So if you've been using Google Maps on your phone, you can sign in and any addresses that you've searched for on your phone would then show up inside of the infotainment system here too. Just really straightforward using. And I mentioned you can also use your voice if you wanted to search for different addresses instead. So that's straightforward to do. Navigate to Tim Hortons.
There's a Tim Hortons 0.3 kilometers away.
So you can see there, gives us different options in order to search. So using your voice is incredibly straightforward. But that's using factory navigation inside of the ride. And next up is adding in a phone. So if we go to the device list, as of right now, no phones are connected. So we hop back, let's connect a new device. And we're going to start off on the iPhone side of things. So inside of your settings, you're going to go Bluetooth, looking for Acura MDX to show up. Pin numbers match up, so let's go ahead and pair. And do you want to allow contacts and favorites to sync up? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. So if it was yours, you could obviously say yes. And you can stop here. So we're connected over Bluetooth, so you'd be able to make phone calls and then also stream audio this way. But you've also got the flexibility to use Apple CarPlay. Now, it is wireless, but it's also backwards compatible. So if you wanted to use a USB-C cable, you could. You just have to plug yourself in inside of the armrest. But let's go ahead and use CarPlay here. Like I said, you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but you've got a lot of other options that are available when you utilize CarPlay. And look at this, full CarPlay connectivity. So along the outside here, you've got this icon, which is going to give you a little bit of a split screen. So you can go split versus full. The icon tray here is always going to be locked into place. So if you wanted to listen to AM, FM radio while you're also going through CarPlay, you've got the flexibility to do it. You've got your current time, connection level, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last, your battery, and then you've got your little icon view. So you can go icon view versus the home screen instead. Big, bright, and beautiful. There's not much flexibility from the actual look perspective. This is always going to be your map, your search bar, and then whichever audio application was last opened. Inside of your settings, though, you can set it to driving focus. You can also change out the wallpaper. So if you wanted to adjust the look, you've got the flexibility to do it. So there are a few small options that you've got available for customization. And then here, you've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze that are all available inside of the screen. My personal recommendation, I'm always a big fan of using Waze for a few reasons. Like as people are driving along, if they see that there's a speed trap, they're pretty good at marking that off, just so that you've got a heads up. If there's construction accidents and things like that, you can mark that stuff off yourself if you'd like to, and then back from there. But regardless of which map application that you use, whether it's Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze, there's no pinch to zoom capabilities on the Apple CarPlay side of things. So that's the only downside. And there's also no video playback support inside of CarPlay yet. Now, when you're connected through CarPlay, you can also do a long button push and hold on the voice command prompt, and that's going to bring up your Siri assistant, so the one in your phone. If you do a short button push, that's going to be the built-in assistant for the vehicle. So short button push is for the vehicle assistant, long button push and hold is for your phone assistant instead. You've also got the flexibility of customizing the icon layout here if you're not a fan of the layout. What you're going to do, go into your settings, you're going to go general, and then CarPlay, find your vehicle. You can forget it, customize, or turn CarPlay off. But if you can't even get to these steps because CarPlay is not connecting for you, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a walkthrough video on how to connect CarPlay if it's giving you problems. But you can customize the layout here. So let's say if you wanted to have your podcasts along the very top and you're a bigger fan of using Waze, you can bring those to the top. Anything with a minus next to it, you can remove it from the vehicle. So you've got the flexibility of customizing this a little bit. It saves it at the very bottom of the screen, so you could add it back in if you want to. And let's say if you played around with the layout of these too much, you're not a fan of what you've done. Along the top right side of your phone, there's a reset button. So you're going to hit reset, reset, and that's going to bring you back to the factory default layout screen. If you hop back to the home screen here and shoot across into your general settings, connections, and then devices. So you've got the iPhone that we've connected to. you could then hit this. So what we're doing is we're disconnecting from CarPlay and we're reconnecting strictly over Bluetooth. So if you just wanted to be hooked up over Bluetooth, you'd have the flexibility to do it. But like I was saying, CarPlay gives you so many different options. It's just going to come down to a matter of personal preference. You could then connect through. You've got Bluetooth options. You can disconnect from the device as well. So it's that straightforward using Apple devices inside of the MDX. Setting up an Android device is the exact same process. So on this screen, all you're going to do, just connect new device, and we're looking for MDX inside of the Android phone as well. So we're just going to wait for MDX to pop up. There we go. And let's connect through. Pin numbers match up, so we're going to hit OK there. Allow access to contacts and messages. This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. And similar to the iPhone side of things, we've also got Android Auto. It is backwards compatible again, so you can use a USB Type-C cable if you wanted to, but let's go ahead and enable Android Auto. So it's going to take a second here in order to connect. And a few seconds in, we are fully connected to Android Auto. So a different kind of setup compared to Apple CarPlay, but it works essentially the exact same way. So this is an Android device. You've got Google Maps as a default there, so pinch to zoom. All of the same map application, or map options, I should say, is what we found inside of the factory option. So the MDX screen is Google-based, so it's got Google Maps, but you can also use it through Android Auto instead if you want to, and it works the exact same way. So you've got your options for searching for addresses, GPS coordinates, things like that, point of interest icons. You can look at your traffic, guidance volumes, route options, and things like that. Change your perspective. You can hit this icon to get to a split screen, hit it again to get to the icon view. If you wanted full screen maps, just hit the map application and you've got full screen instead. You've got your Google Assistant that way. Again, you can do a short button push in order to get the assistant for the vehicle, or you do a long button push and hold, and that's going to be for your phone assistant. So that's the same whether you're in Google or iOS devices. From here, hitting this icon brings you up to this little screen where I've got Waze installed. But if you've got Waze installed on your Android device and it's not actually showing up here, check down in the description of this video. I've put together a little walkthrough on how you can actually set this up. But it's straightforward using it. You've got your basics along the bottom here, so a quick launch tray along with your current time, your battery level, and your connection level as well. And you can also customize the layout here a tiny little bit. So inside of your phone, what you're going to do is you're going to search for Android Auto. You're going to go Android Auto settings. And once you click through, you've got a ton of options. But what we're looking for is Customize Launcher. So you're going to go Customize Launcher, and you can see all of the available icons here. You could just do a drag and drop in order to customize it. So if you wanted to change out the overall layout, you've got the flexibility to do it. Now, the one thing though is that it's not dynamic the same way it was on the iPhone side of things. So it's not just going to add all of these icons in and readjust them. So in order for the changes that you've made here to come into effect, what you need to do, go back home, go to your general settings, your connections, device connections. You're going to disconnect from Android Auto. You're going to reconnect to Android Auto. And when this launches through, icon view, you can see here the changes that we've made have now come into effect. So not dynamic, but easy enough to adjust out if you want. You can hit back home there. And the quick launch tray along the outside, we have it set for Apple CarPlay. But if you're using Android devices, you then have the flexibility of setting up any of these other icons, including having Android Auto there instead. So if you wanted to replace it, you'd have the flexibility to do it. You can hop back into your phone this way in order to jump back into just your basic phone. Or if we go back here, you can click through Android Auto to hop back into the screen again. If you hop back home now, you can then go into your vehicle settings, connections, device connections, and you've got both phones that have been connected. So if you wanted to, you can disconnect. So you can either be hooked up to Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, not both, but you can kind of do a mix here, which is kind of nice. So if you've got both phones that are in the vehicle, you can see who gets connection there. And then you can also do connection priority. So if you're driving with multiple phones inside the vehicle, who's it going to try to connect to first? So I know that's a little bit of info, but that's how you set up Android and iPhone devices inside of the MDX. If you wanted to delete phones from the vehicle, all you're going to do is click through to whichever device, and you're just going to go delete, delete, and delete. And same idea, let's do that for the Galaxy as well. So delete, and 3, 2, 1. We've now deleted both phones from the vehicle. If you hop into your options now, you can toggle Bluetooth off completely. You can also change the vehicle name. So if you don't want it to be Acura MDX, you wanted it to be Sam's MDX or Bob's MDX or whatever the case may be, you've got the flexibility of changing out the vehicle name there instead. And then you can either go normal versus that wide view instead. So we saw the wide view with that full screen, but the normal view would mean that we've got this locked into place. So you've got the flexibility of changing out that screen size. But that's hooking up a phone inside of the ride, so Android and iPhone devices. Next up is going to be using the radio, so AM, FM, whatever the case may be. You can hit this icon along the very top to change to all of your available sources, and there are so many. So AM, FM, USB, Bluetooth, and then so many other options here as well. On top of that, you can also use the pad along the left-hand side of the steering wheel in order to change out your available source as well. So if we are looking at the head-up display here, you can see as we navigate through, we can change it out to AM, FM, USB, Apple CarPlay if Android Auto is in there as well. So you've got the flexibility of adjusting it out. If you're just listening to AM or FM, your best bet if you wanted to change stations is just use the voice command prompt along the steering wheel and change stations that way. But you can also easily add in different presets. So if we, 97.7 FM. So we're tuning to a station there. After it tunes to whatever station, if you wanted to save it, you just do a push and hold, and that's going to either give you the flexibility to remove or we can replace. If we were on, let's go back and let's look at a station list. So you've got all of the available stations based off of your geographic area. If we go to another station, you can overwrite any of these other stations if you'd like, or push and hold in order to save it as a new station instead. You could look at your station list jump, or you can refresh. So if you're new to an area, you're not sure what stations are available, you can hit the refresh option there. You can tune to a station this way. So if you wanted to type in a station, you've got the flexibility to do it, and then just button push and hold again in order to remove or replace, and then back in to lock that into place. But you've got a bunch of different options that are available here. You can also scan. So if you wanted to scan to different stations, you've got the flexibility to do it. AM is going to give you the exact same options too. So you've got all of your different presets, and it's nice because the presets are broken up based off of whether you're in AM or FM. You've got Alexa, podcasts, and the news that's available too. USB is strictly going to be for a USB device, so USB Type-C, but you've got the flexibility of listening to USB audio as well if you'd like to. It's straightforward. There's a Play Store that's available, and the Play Store, so since this is a Google device, you'd have the flexibility of downloading additional apps right to the vehicle. All you're going to do is just sign in here. When you do, you can sign in with your phone, and it's going to take a second here. And then you're just going to scan that QR code on your phone. That's going to launch you into a Google screen here, and you're just going to log yourself in. There we go. And after you've signed in, it's just going to ask you, do you want to log in? And it'll take a second here. And we are signed in right now. And the benefit, like I said, it gives you the flexibility of doing a bunch of different things. So here we go. We're in the Play Store right now. And if you wanted to, you could search for different apps. So I love using Waze. So let's say if you wanted to use the Waze application inside of the vehicle, you'd have the flexibility of being able to download and install it right into the infotainment system instead. So you don't have to connect your phone anymore. You can run off of the built-in option here. Hopping back, there are a ton of different options too. So if you wanted to search for different games. So if you're just kind of hanging out, waiting to pick somebody up, you then have the flexibility of being able to play different games and different apps and things like that, looking through different apps available here. So there are a ton of different options that are available inside of this ride. It's actually kind of useful. So that's the basics here. So you do have to be signed in order to actually be able to download apps, but there are a bunch of different apps that are available that you can utilize inside of the screen. So if you're a bigger fan of using things like Spotify, if you want to use different parking apps and things like that, you could download them to the device directly. We've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You do have to be connected, whether that's wirelessly or over USB for them to work, but that's available here. You can see that Waze has now been downloaded. Alexa's available. You have to be signed in to use it. You've got your Google Assistant. You can use that way. You can push the button there. You can say, hey, Google, in order to activate it that way. vehicle settings, and there are so many different options. You can do a little change view here if you wanted to tweak out the way that this is laid out. So it's a matter of preference. It's the exact same thing. It's just going to be a different layout. There's a menu icon here in order to default everything back to the factory options, or you can even change out the body color. So if you wanted it to match your Acura, you'd have the flexibility to do that. It's kind of a nice little thing that you can do here. So you've got the option there of adjusting this out. And let's dive into all of the available options, starting off with the driver assistance systems. Starting off with the forward collision warning. So if there's potentially going to be an accident, the vehicle can let you know, and it's how close or far are you away from the vehicle before you get that notification. Do you want to get a warning of a potential collision inside of your head-up display? There's adaptive cruise control with your cornering speed. So if the vehicle recognizes that you're going around a bend, it can automatically slow you down if you've got the adaptive cruise control system turned on. Let's see, I'm just trying to think of other ones. Active lane change assist is kind of neat. So if you're on the highway and the vehicle allows it, you can hit the turn stalk to go left or right. It's going to check to see if there's anybody next to you, and then it can automatically change lanes for you. So you do technically have to have your hands on the steering wheel, but it's kind of neat that it can change lanes for you by itself, but you can also toggle that off if you don't want it. And then these are just basics. So your driver attention monitor. So if you start to veer over too many times without signaling, either nothing's going to happen, or you're going to get a tactile alert, so a little bit of a steering wheel shake, and then you'll also get an audible alert as well. So just basic driving attention systems. Seating position at entry exit's kind of a neat one. So what that one's going to do with it turned on, when you go to turn the vehicle off or on, what it's going to do is push the steering wheel in and back the seat up for you to be able to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. So you can do that for the seat and then for the steering wheel. So do you want that for both positions, yay or nay? Lighting setup is available. So auto high beam is kind of an interesting one. On the left stick, you've got a series of options here. So you can toggle them off, and then there are different light modes. In the auto mode, you can't permanently lock your high beams out though. You can flash them, no problem. But in order to lock out your high beams, you have to be in the bottom light mode. From there, you can push away, and then to turn them off, you're gonna pull towards you. But in the auto mode, you can flash your high beams, no problem, but you've got the auto high beam option here. And what that means is that if the vehicle recognizes that your high beams are needed, it turns them on automatically. If somebody's oncoming, it turns them off before turning them right back on again. Interior light, how long do you want the interior lights to stay on for after you shut the door? Headlight auto timer, when you go to lock the vehicle, how long did the headlamps stay on for before they turn off? So you've got, I think it's up to, 60 seconds here. So they just turn off automatically, or they stay on for up to 1 full minute. Let's see, nothing else exciting there. With your power tailgate, do you want to be able to use the outside handle there in order to open up? And then hands-free is a kick function in order for you to be able to open it up instead. There are different suspension options inside the vehicle. So if your vehicle has it available, you'll have parked height available with leveling control. So the vehicle can raise or lower depending on your driving scenario. Basic maintenance information, so you can see your oil life, engine oil. You can reset the items if you're doing those oil changes yourself. With meter setups, you can change out when trip A or B are going to reset. So you can have it so that you have to manually reset your counters. You can have it when you turn your ignition off, so every time you restart the vehicle, or when you're fully refueled. What I'd recommend is that if you're using your Acura as a business vehicle, change either trip A or trip B to your ignition off. And the big benefit there is you turn the vehicle off, back on again, and then you'll know what distance you've traveled. Again, easy for your basic logs if that's the case. And the other ones here, you've got your rear seat reminders. So when you go to turn the vehicle off, it's going to remind you to check the back seats just to make sure you haven't forgotten somebody back there. And then your distance units as well. So you want to be in either miles or kilometers. Because we've got this big, beautiful digital cluster screen, as we change out, it's going to change it out for everything. So your current speed, along with your adaptive cruise control speed, if you have that set up, and then your current mileage along the very bottom. Key access setup. When you go to unlock using the key fob, is it just the driver's door that becomes unlocked, or is it all doors instead? Let's see, key access light flash. When you go to lock the vehicle, do you get lights? Do you get beeps? Do you want to toggle remote start off so you can't use it on the fob whatsoever? And then lockout prevention. So if the key fob is locked inside the vehicle, you can't accidentally lock it inside. There's door setup. So when do you want the doors to automatically lock or unlock? So very useful here from a basic safety perspective. Do you just never want them to unlock? Do you want the doors to automatically unlock when you turn the ignition off, etc.? There's also walk-away auto lock. So really useful here because if you've forgotten to lock the vehicle and you start walking away, it's going to automatically lock the door for you. Let's see. Do you want the mirrors to automatically fold in when you go to lock the vehicle? And then you can also use the key fob in order to remote control the windows. So let's hop outside and I'll show you how a bunch of these features work. In order to remote start, what you're going to do is push the lock button and then push and hold that engine hold button for a few seconds right afterwards. You're going to go lock, push and hold. There we go. See there that the start stop has begun, so the engine is started up. In order to cancel the remote start, just push and hold that engine hold button again, and we're done. From here, you've also got your trunk release. So what you could do, push and hold there. In order to open up the lift gate, you can push to pause, push and hold again in order to close. So that's a way you can get into the trunk of the ride. But one nice thing is that the MDX also has the option for a foot activated. So as long as you've got the fob on you, you can kick in order to be able to open up. You can close there as well. And you can also set a unique height. So let's say if your garage only opens up to a certain point or you can't reach, you can manually adjust here. And then once you get it to the height you'd like, you're just going to push and hold in order to lock it into place. And then you can just button push in order to close from there. Then there's one other neat key fob trick that you can do, and that's rolling the windows down. In order to do it, you push the unlock button once and then push and hold again within a few seconds. So we're going to go 1 and then hold. You can release it to pause it part way, and then if you push and hold the unlock button again, so not only is it opening up all 4 windows, but it's also opening up the sunroof as well. I love it. All of the different options are great. I love how the remote power open option works though. Then, hopping back in, there are some individual settings available too. So you've got a series of different drive modes that are available. So if we look, we've got our dynamic selector switch here, where you've got different options here. You could jump between all of these different options. So lift versus snow, comfort, sport mode, etc. But if you push the middle button in, that's your individual setting instead. So the big benefit of that individual setting is you can choose what it does. So if we hop back into our individual option here, what do you want it to do? Do you want it to have the engine for sport mode, comfort mode? How do you want your steering and suspension to be? What do you want your gauges to look like? Do you want it to be in a sport mode, comfort mode, things like that? And that's actually one neat thing because inside of the cluster screen or your gauge setup there, as you move between different modes, it's going to change it up a little bit. So kind of customize it and make it your own that little bit more. Actually kind of like that. It looks really sharp at nighttime, but even during the day, nice subtle changes there. But having the option of setting up your individual mode to do what you'd like is also pretty useful. From here, you've got a series of general settings, so you can adjust some system options, date and time. You can set your date and time automatically, and these are grayed out because it's automatic. But if you wanted to manually set your date and time, you'd have the flexibility to do it. I just always recommend keep that one in the auto mode. Time zone, though, is automatic, but you might want to have it so that you can automatically set your time zone. A big benefit there is that if you live somewhere where you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one to the other, you'd have the flexibility of being able to lock it into any of these options. Auto daylight savings times available there. Date and time format. Do you want to be in 12 versus 24-hour mode instead? So that military time. You can change out your language for both the center display here or for your instrument cluster. So if you wanted to have one language for the other, you'd have the flexibility of adjusting that. And that's going to be region specific. There's basic about information. You can do a factory reset. So if the vehicle is being sold, or like me, it's a press unit, I'm just going to do a factory reset to get rid of all of the options that I've added in when I had the vehicle. There are some basic connection options, which we've already seen in order to add in additional devices. Wi-Fi is available here as well. So if you wanted to connect to a Wi-Fi network at home, you could. Big benefit there is that you're not using data from the screen. So if you wanted to download offline maps, you could. There's basic privacy information. So if you wanted to, you could disable sharing with Acura. If you wanted to go that route, I know some people aren't crazy with data sharing, so you could. You can also toggle off the microphone. So if you just didn't want the vehicle to be able to use the microphone whatsoever, same thing with location data. So if you didn't want to give apps certain permissions, you'd have the flexibility of being able to select different apps and when they can use your location data and things like that. Different app permissions. There's an ads manager here, which is a little concerning, but I've been in a bunch of different vehicles that have the Google operating system. I've never seen an ad yet. It's concerning that it's there, but I don't think it's an issue at this point. You can tweak out some settings for your display. So do you want to adjust the brightness, the black levels, toggle the display off, back on again, reset everything back to the default. There are basic sound settings, so you can change it out for your bass, treble, heavy, etc. So you've got the flexibility. I actually kind of like the way that they've done this. So it kind of gives you an idea. But what I'd actually recommend here is play one of your favorite songs. And while you're listening to the song, adjust this out a little bit more in order to make it sound perfect for you. And once it does, bring it back and you're set to go. You can also adjust out all of the different speaker volumes here. See, audio zone, do you want it to have focus on everybody? You can also kind of do a little balance versus fade here. Bring it back to center if you'd like to. You can have it driver focused, front focused, rear focused instead, or for the full vehicle. Speed compensated volume, as you're going faster or slower, it can automatically raise the sound for you instead. You can adjust different sound volumes too, so for your navigation, for phone calls and things like that. So if you wanted to have all of these different sounds set to something unique, you've got the flexibility to do it. For your camera, you've got a few different options. So your guidelines, do you want to have your fixed versus your dynamic guidelines? So as we go into our 360 camera there, you've got your guidelines, and then as you go to rotate, they're dynamic. So you could have it so that the dynamic ones are there, yay, nay, or you can have them fixed in place. I'm a big fan of having both of them, but that's going to be a matter of preference. You can customize a few things here as well. So do you want to show the camera for a brief time after you shift from reverse into drive? And then do you want the camera to show if an obstacle is detected? So if we go back to our camera there, you've got your full 360 view. You can hit this view in order to get a slightly different look. Then you can also change things out. So if you wanted to adjust the brightness of that screen, you've got the flexibility to do it. See, front cross traffic warning is a useful one to have on. And the reason why is because if you're pulling out of a space and somebody's coming perpendicular, so from the left or the right, it can let you know of a potential collision there. Cross traffic monitor is a useful one as well. That same principle applies. Voice control. So you've got your default app, which is going to be your Google Assistant. You can sign into Alexa if you would rather use Alexa instead of the Google Assistant, or you can have no assistant whatsoever. When you've connected your phone over an iPhone, you can then have it listen for Hey Siri instead. But because we're in Google right now, hey Google, 94.9 FM. So you can easily adjust stations out that way if you'd like to, but you've got different options available here. There's some security information, which the big one here I'd recommend maybe looking at is the profile lock for either a PIN or a password. Big benefit there is that if you've got your phone connected, there are addresses that you search for, whatever the case may be, you could then lock your screen out. So you need to enter a PIN or a password for somebody to look through those different options. And that's going to be unique to the individual profile. So if multiple people are driving the vehicle, you've got different profiles set up. You can have pins and passwords set up for each individual person. You can see if there are security updates that are available. You can look at some basic Google settings. And then you've got a series of different advanced settings. And honestly, for most of these, I would just recommend keeping it at whatever the default is. Like unless you're an advanced Android user, I wouldn't even bother diving into these settings. Like you could look at system updates. I guess would be the only one. So the vehicle is going to let you know if there are updates that are available. You can see what Android option you're running. And then you've also got your reset options. So let's say if CarPlay is giving you problems, it's not connecting properly, you could also do a reset for the network or reset your app preferences instead. And I think that's everything on that main screen there. You've got individual profile settings, so you can change profiles or manage. And big benefit there is that if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you can have it set up for individual profiles. So it's going to remember all of your presets. If you've signed into Google accounts for your maps, or whatever the case may be, it'll log it into your individual profile. If you're the only one driving, not a big deal, but you can easily manage or change profiles out from here. There's ambient lighting available inside of the ride, and you can have it adjust out based off of the dynamic mode that you're in. So the mode that we were looking at down the middle here, as you change that out, you'd also have the flexibility of having it look slightly different throughout the vehicle as you move between these different modes. It's actually kind of neat. You can also select a different color scheme. So if you wanted to kind of change it out to make it look something different, you've got that flexibility. And back. Bluetooth options are available there. So as of right now, I'm not connected to a Bluetooth device, but if you were, you'd have options show up there. You can view your trip computer as well, so you can see what's going on with your current drive. Fuel economy is terrible because I'm just sitting here doing an explainer video. But if we look at our basic trip counters here, you can see so far, since I've picked this vehicle up, I've driven 68.2 kilometers, 14.4 liters per 100. Again, that's higher just because I'm sitting here right now and I'm getting brutal fuel economy. You can hit the menu icon in order to reset as well. Manually reset, again, we've seen these where you can have it reset when you turn the vehicle off, when you refuel the vehicle, etc. Or you can delete your trip history overall. USB, so if you had a USB stick that was connected, you'd have options show up. You can see if there are system updates that are available. Cabin talk picks up the microphone from the front and shoots it into the back as well. You can adjust your clock out. So you've got your clock face there, but you can also adjust out to a different clock face. So you can add more in. You can just have a basic digital clock. It's a matter of preference. And back into your date and time, which we've already seen this one. So you'll see a few of these things duplicated a few different spots. There is your compass view instead, so if you wanted to see which direction you're facing. Your display mode, so if you wanted to turn the display off, you could. You can adjust the screen brightness from here. And then you can see all the different apps that are available, and you can show or select whether or not they're visible on that home screen as well. So if you didn't want certain apps showing up, you could block them from showing up on the home screen here. And Waze is one that we've downloaded. So if you wanted to, you could then take that app and drag it onto the home screen here instead, locking your selections into place. So I know that's a lot of information, but the screen itself is very feature-packed, but also relatively easy to use too. And then you've got a series of other options and buttons. So if we look down the middle here, you've got your four-way blinkers, you've got dual zone climate control, you've got your basic climate control settings. So you do want to change it to windshield face feet, some sort of Frankenstein combination. You can adjust your fan speed. You can also have your rear settings here. So you could lock out your rear settings completely. So if people in the back are fighting, you could lock them out. You could adjust your rear setting here. So if you wanted to turn off the rear climate, you could. You've got ventilated first row seats, heated first row seats available as an option with the option for full massage chair capability as well, which I absolutely love that option. So it's not standard across the board, but it is pretty useful that it's there. You've got your dynamic shifter option, so if you wanted to change it out to different drive modes, you could do that. Start stop down the middle here. If you come down to a complete stop, you might notice that the engine turns off. Brake hold is a pretty useful one too. So with this one enabled, if you're in drive, come down to a stop, take your foot off the brake, the car is not going to move. You've got your shifter down the middle. There are some USB power points here that are strictly for charging. So there's charge ports versus data ports. Charge ports are here, data ports are in the armrest. You've got your volume rocker here, change between songs and stations, along with a wireless charge pad. And then, if the screen's ever giving you problems, like let's say if you can't connect to Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, or it's giving you any sort of other problems, you can easily do a screen reboot too. In order to make it happen, just push and hold the home icon for about 5 to 10 seconds. There we go. And once that happens, you could either cancel, you can do a soft reboot, or reboot in safe mode. So if you've downloaded an app that's giving you problems, you can do a safe mode reboot, which is going to essentially disable all of the apps. But just a basic screen reboot here. So like I said, the typical time you're going to have to do that is that if the screen's giving you issues with connectivity options for your phone, if it's acting buggy, because think about it, this is a device. Think of it like a mini laptop or a tablet. If you've kept it on for too long without actually doing a reboot, it might be slow and sluggish. So doing a soft reboot here instead is a good way to essentially clear the cache out and then make sure that things are running properly. So I know that that is a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Acura MDX.